If you carry a firearm and discharge your weapon in self-defense, you could face hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees and expenses. So carry the protection of CCW Safe, Self-Defense Legal Services membership. Upfront payment of all criminal and civil defense costs with no out-of-pocket for members.
And we're back. Hey, everybody. I'm not, you guys, if you saw the thumbnail, you probably thought Khalid was going to be here, but got a little bit of last second snafu, and I stepped in, and I'll be leading the charge tonight. Again, I'm John Wheaton. You guys know me from back in the days. I used to host all the time, Survival Dispatch, and glad to be here. And with us, we have Mr. Jeff MD, CIA extraordinaire, and we also have Mr. Nick. How are you, brother?
I'm good.
And Jeff, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I can't complain.
Good. Well, and you guys will forgive me. This was kind of a last minute thing, so we will just roll with it and do our best. So here we go. Before we get started, I want to remind you guys to become a Guardian. The Guardian membership is our paid membership over on our Substack, and it is a great place for you guys to meet like-minded individuals and join a community that is all about threat analysis and intel, and you get access to 5 encrypted intel channels via Signal, and there are lots and lots of people in there sharing intel all of the time. So if you guys are interested in that, you also get a lot of other add-ons as well at just for $7.99 a month, $74.99 a year. If you pay for the year membership, which saves you about 2.5 months on the annual membership. Obviously, I mentioned the Intel access for the 5 channels. You get direct access to all of the SDN team. We're all on there. We're all communicating with the community. You get the SDN's alerts, which is our emergency notification, and behind the scenes content, as well as the survival magazines, and the full sit reps without the paywall, and early access to content before it is publicly released. So you're also going to get some other things with our new Threat Wire that are coming up very soon. I've been running a lot of the Threat Wire stuff in my new role here for Survival Dispatch, and there's a lot of new stuff coming there soon as well. And those are great to share with people that may not have time to sit down to an hour and a half, 2-hour podcast or read a long article, because they're typically under 2-minute long videos that explain a situation and how we deal with it. So all stuff that you get with our Guardian membership. And so just head over to survivaldispatch.news and you can sign up there. We look forward to having you guys there. And so we're going to go ahead and dive into some of the news going on here in the country. So our first order of business is that of in 2023, 25% of patients were in New York City were illegals, gaming the system for free healthcare. And in 2023, NBC News clip reported that 25% of all patients in New York City hospitals were illegals, and it is going viral. NBC now reports in 2025 that illegals aren't receiving healthcare. So let's watch this video, 17 seconds, and then we're gonna talk about this.
Across public hospitals in New York City, a quarter of the patients are now migrants. Over the last year, nearly 30,000 visits by migrants and 300 new babies born to migrant moms. Staff here at Bellevue Hospital tell us they're eager to help, but the numbers are tough. Across public hospitals in New York City.
So 300 babies. Let's just kind of calculate that. When we had our children, it was north of $20,000 to $30,000
Yeah,
for a
my
child.
daughter I don't even want to think what she just paid for her kid a year ago, but
Yeah.
it
So
was many thousands and thousands of dollars.
yes. So our younger biological son was born 10 years ago, and it was about $33,000 if I remember correctly. I'm just kind of off the top of my mind. I remember it was north of $30,000 for the entire thing. Obviously, we had insurance, so a lot of that was paid for by insurance. But when you don't have insurance, that gets eaten by the hospital.
Yeah.
So, Jeff, what kind of how much strain would this level of free healthcare? This is just like in the context of childbirth. This not including the thousands upon thousands of accidents, and
Yeah. Car wrecks, all that kind of
chronic
stuff.
diseases,
Yeah.
heart attacks, all of these kinds of things, which are way more expensive than childbirth. I mean, sometimes a heart open heart surgery or something like that can be hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yes.
So what kind of a strain does this put on a healthcare system, even one as large and vast as New York City?
Well, it puts a huge strain on it because, well, it puts a strain on the healthcare system, but more importantly, it puts a strain on the government because those hospitals will say, hey, you passed a law saying we have to treat these people. You got to give us some money to treat these people. And so this, the state won't make them whole, but they will, they'll give them some funds. I mean, through Medicare, Medicaid, whatever. Now, part of the article, it said migrants, they don't distinguish between legal and illegal migrants, but in 2023 was in the middle of the invasion. And therefore, I'm just assuming a huge chunk of those, if not the vast majority, were illegals that were basically, waved across the border for 4 years. But yeah, this is a big deal. This costs us, we spend billions, if not trillions of dollars as a society supporting illegals between educating the kids, the medical, they say they're not on SNAP, but we all know they're on SNAP. The kids get free lunches at school. They get in New York, they were putting them up in hotels that would normally go for $300, $400, $500 a night. So yeah, there's a ton of money going out for these people. And you got to ask yourself, what are they contributing? And the answer is not a whole lot.
Right.
Despite they're doing the jobs that Americans don't want to do. No, most of the time they're sitting on their butt waiting for their next benefit to come in.
Right. And a lot of that has to do with what they're told when they're brought in and where they're put. And, we're putting them up in posh hotels and in some cases in New York City and Chicago and all these other places.
Yeah.
And straining the infrastructure of a city and it's not even just big cities. I mean, we remember the stories from Springfield, Ohio from a couple of years ago, the famous they're eating the dogs, eating the cats. But I think they had something like 20,000, 30,000 Haitians dumped into a small town that almost doubled the size of it.
Yeah.
The infrastructure of a small town can't handle that.
No. And then you get these people, somehow they find the money to get cars. They don't know how to drive. They don't have insurance. They're causing wrecks all the time. And who gets left, holding the bag is whoever they run into. Because then if they hit you and you have insurance, well, then your insurance will have to pay because they're uninsured.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it's death by 1,000 cuts, except they're not little cuts, they're gashes. And they try to say, oh, they're the ones who put food on your table. Yeah, they're not picking a whole lot of lettuce in Manhattan. Just saying.
No, they aren't.
Been to Manhattan. Didn't see any fields.
Yeah, I didn't know that Central Park was also a garden, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's the only grass in New York City.
Pretty much.
So and this is a big deal because I do, and I know you would probably agree with me that this is a clear 180 by the media. 2023, Trump was not in power. ICE was not enforcing these laws, and they were basically neutered at the time, undermanned, And what Trump has done since he got in is he's definitely bolstered the ranks of the ICE agents and is actually doing what they're supposed to be doing, no matter what the media says. But the media is obviously going to downplay this to a certain extent to say, "Oh, no, there's no crisis here." And they're, hey, guess what, guys? All those migrants we were paying hospital bills for 2 years ago, nobody's getting sick, nobody's getting pregnant now.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And again, they use the word migrant without clarifying if it's legal or illegal.
Well, and that's always been the left has always been fantastic at defining terms. This is actually probably why Trump was so effective against the left, is because he defined who he was against before they could define him.
Yeah.
And that's what the left has always been good at, is defining the narrative. Just like we would not actually be considered conservatives. We're actually what would be classified as traditional liberals, classic liberals.
Yeah.
And a president in the 1930s actually changed the terms. That was FDR. He changed the terms because before we would have been actually known as liberals. And he used the term conservative in a negative connotation to say that we're just people trying to hold on to, out of time and out of step traditions and all this stuff. So that's one example in history of them defining terms and changing the terms that are used to make it to change the narrative overall.
Yeah, and they went from socialist to progressive.
Yeah,
they believe in the same things, because socialist became a dirty word after they killed about 100 million people. Socialist, communist, you look at, well, geez, he slaughtered people by the tens of millions. I don't think we want socialism. Well, it's not socialism. It's progressivism. It's liberalism. It's you're being woke. You
don't want to be. You don't want to not be progressive. You don't want to progress, right? You want to just. That's always the way that they define these terms. Anyways,
well, and they define conservative. Oh, conservatives are against change. Well, I'm a conservative, and I'm against change for the sake of change.
Right.
I'm all for change if you're trying to improve something.
Yes.
I'm against change if you're trying to destroy something, or you don't know what you're doing and you just say, yeah, let's just change it. Well, how about let's not?
Yep. Exactly. And this is one aspect of what we would call, and kind of what the whole theme of tonight's episode is this this replacement, and of course the left and the media is going to say, oh, great replacement theory is not a real thing and it's a conspiracy theory and all this stuff. But yet when you look around, it doesn't seem much like a conspiracy theory.
That's exactly what they're doing through DEI.
Exactly. Yes. And so we're looking at, and I was actually in communication with Chris. He's had a business trip and flew into another town. I won't say where he was at, but it's a very, very well-known Midwestern area. And he was like, I can't even recognize this place. It's just full of Middle Eastern people and, people from south of the border. And it's and I was just recently in Nashville to get my phone repaired a couple of weeks ago, and I saw the same thing. And it was very much a kind of a culture shock, because you wouldn't think of a town, a town like Nashville. You would think of, white country artists, you wouldn't think of a, highly diverse population. And I'm not saying diverse in a good way. I'm saying like they're bringing in these people by the boatloads. I honestly wonder, even if we're saying something like 20 million, if we're underestimating the number.
Oh, I think so. I think it's more than that.
So it's kind of crazy. But all right, moving on to the next video we've got here. Senior White House advisor Stephen Miller. Let's watch this real quick. He's read his post here. Stephen Miller, senior Trump advisor, is trying to exclude illegal aliens from the U.S. Census, which has removed House seats in blue states like California, New York, etc. Do you support illegals from the U.S. Census? A, hell yes, and B, no. So this is a very real thing, and I know that there's been some contention about the census was happened. I believe it happened in 2024, and how that if you are adding in illegals into the numbers, say it is 20 million people. You add 20 million people dispersed across different states. That's going to change the makeup of the electorate
It's over
and
20 House seats.
the House.
Yeah.
So maybe, and you also have to think about this: what states are more lenient on these people coming in? Blue states, right? So a blue state adds 5 million, say California adds 5 million people to its books via illegal immigration. Well, guess what? You're going to get 2 new House seats now. And we're
Actually,
taking
you can
those
get
away
about
from
6 new House seats.
or 6 new House. Yeah, whatever the number
Well,
is.
it's about I think between 8 and 900,000 people per House seat. Well, you take the population, divide it by 435, and that's what you get.
Yeah. So
there's
you look at
adjustments
that.
because some states get one regardless of their population, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But the problem is if you're using that to apportion for Congress, you're getting seats that are there not because of U.S. citizens, but because of illegals. And the hypothetical I put out is to say, okay, you could have a congressional seat district that is 100% migrants, either illegal or legal. And you could literally have a representative district where there is no one who lives in it eligible to be a congressperson.
Yeah.
If they're all illegals, there's no American. You have to be an American to be in Congress. So you would have like 900,000 people, and none of them are eligible to actually be a congressman. I mean, how insane is that?
Well, and there's another story that kind of flew under the radar because of just going to say it. I'm tired of all of the focus of what's going on being Israel right now. It's kind of annoying because it overshadows almost every single other thing in the news that we probably need to be paying attention to. Regardless of what you think, I think we need to focus on things that are going on in this country right now. And there was one on the district where Ilhan Omar comes from, and how many people did the exact same thing that she did, in that she used marrying her brother to get her citizenship to the United States. And now she's a congresswoman. And they said that there are, I think the number was in the thousands of cases where they did the same thing.
Yeah.
So you think about that, that's Minnesota. And in Minnesota, Minneapolis area has become a hotbed for far leftist and Islamic extremist areas. So, you've got all of these people that are coming in and breaking the rules, breaking the law. It's time that we do something about this and we enforce the laws. And I don't know if you guys saw this, but the Supreme Court apparently just ruled that Trump has the power to use the War Criminals Illegal Aliens Act. There's a 5-4 decision that happened earlier today. I'll have to pull that up. So that actually is countering the judge that tried to shut him down on this a couple of months ago. The Supreme Court just ruled in his favor. So he could ramp this up, and I hope that they do, because we need to start enforcing this hardcore in the and I absolutely
Alien Criminals Act or something like
that. Criminal Aliens Act. Yeah. I couldn't think of the actual name of it, but it's a late 1700s, I think, law. Yeah. It's very old, but it's been employed a couple of times in the history of the country. And like they were saying, you can't.
Enemy Aliens Act, I think.
Yeah, you can't. They said that you can't use this. There was some federal judge that ruled on it, and basically stopped it cold. But now the Supreme Court has taken it up and said, no, he does have that power. So good for them. Thank goodness. We'll take the victories when we can get them. But now it's time to put some jet fuel on this thing, in my opinion. So, Jeff, what do you, I guess one of the things that we need to, like, one of the big questions is, we've had conservatives and liberals in office, and everybody's talked about this, but nobody's been willing to fix it. Why in 50 years have they not fixed this census loopholes and all this other stuff that's leading to really false elections, in all honesty?
Well, the Democrats want it, and the Republicans are wusses. And for the longest time, before it was wide open borders, the conservatives, the Republicans, I should say, not the conservatives, were willing to accept a certain amount of illegal immigration because it benefited some of their business interests. These big commercial farms, they need cheap labor.
Yep.
The hospitality industry needs cheap labor for for maids and room service and all the low-level employees that make it go. And so both sides had a vested interest in keeping it going. The problem is the people who didn't benefit from it, meaning the rest of the freaking country, they didn't have anyone fighting for them.
Yeah.
We don't give multi-million-dollar campaign donations to congressmen, but hospitality industry does, big ag does. I can guarantee you that Archer Daniels Midland gives a boatload of money to Congress every year in campaign contributions.
Yep. Follow the money. That's really where it comes down to, is follow the money. And that's on both sides.
But it keeps wages low, therefore companies can make more profit.
Yes, and me and my sister were having, this is kind of off subject. I'm going to go down a rabbit hole here, but talking about another thing that's a strain on the system is the fact that we have a housing issue in this country, in that young people can't buy houses. They can't. And I was actually literally talking to my sister about this earlier today, and we went back to, I went back to 2008 and how we bailed out bad practices with the mortgage crisis.
Oh, yeah.
We got to suspend the free market to save it. That was the famous George W. Bush quote that I completely vehemently disagree with, that kind of governance. The free market's a free market. You let it die. If you let the sector die, or you let it hemorrhage a little bit, but then it comes back stronger and it comes back more honest. But instead, we spent $774 billion to bail out bad practices.
Yeah.
And stuff that people had used to pad their pockets. And now what do we see? Almost 20 years later,
we're about to do it again.
Well, we're about to do it again. But the problem is what happens is it causes all of the costs of all of these houses to go up. It causes that, plus inflation and all of these other aspects, cause all of these houses to go up to the point where, and wages aren't going up. That's the problem, because we're not innovating. We're trying to backfill labor that we need with cheap labor, instead of figuring out innovations and how to automate things so that we can, get rid of the lower level jobs and have people take higher paying jobs, more skilled labor type things. So, and this is a fundamental problem with how things are run in the uniparty, because they both do it, because they both get money, as you said.
Yeah.
So in any case, I digress. But that's just a little side tangent of, like, we have so many strains on our system right now.
Yeah.
And how do you think that bringing in 20 million illegal immigrants, illegal aliens, and we already have a housing crisis?
It's only going to be worse. They got to live somewhere.
Well, Zoran Mamdani has the answer. The government's just going to force out all the renters, buy the houses, and give people free housing, right?
Yeah, that'll last for about 15 seconds. Just like the projects in Chicago. They are such beacons on a hill, shining examples of perfection. They torn them all down now because they were drug criminal infested slums.
Yep. And that's what they become, because when people are, this is a principle. When people have to work for something, it's like I worked for my house. I bought my house and I pay on my house. We still have a mortgage on my house. And so I have an obligation to take care of it, because I'm putting my own blood, sweat, and tears into my property.
Yeah.
And that's the difference, is when people have to, and me and my wife, when we first got married, we didn't have a $2 bills to rub together, and we worked our way up through getting better jobs and bought a house, and I'm glad we bought it when we did. But yeah, it's not an opportunity that a lot of kids have now, because the fat cats have destroyed it.
Yeah.
And
there's no downside for them when they make really, really, really stupid decisions. If the government bails them out, there's no disincentive to not do stupid stuff. They had interest only loans where they would, people would buy a house and all they did was pay the interest on the loan, which means they never paid off the house. But then those people defaulted because they have no equity in the house. So what do they care? They just walked away. But those mortgage companies would write the loan. They would hang on to it for a minimum amount of time, 3 months, 6 months, and then they would sell it to, Freddie or Fannie when they were gobble them up, and they were crap loans to begin with. There was no equity in the house. That when the people defaulted and then they took the house and they put it on the market to sell it, well, guess what? It was a $400,000 house. Now it's a $200,000 house. And where does the $400,000 difference go? Well, taxpayers bail them out for that. And if they would just do, I hate to say it, like in the old days, you had to put 20% down on your house. They checked your credit. They made sure you had a job, that you had money in the bank, because in those days, the banks held on to the note. They didn't sell it.
Yes.
So if you defaulted and they lost, it was their ass. And part of the reason for the 20% down was for the bank to make sure they didn't lose their ass. The house may not be worth as much, but they still have that 20%, and they can make their depositors, which are also us, whole. Well, now they don't depend on depositors anymore. The Fed gives them all the money they want at 0% interest. So they're basically playing with house money. And then if they lose, the house bails them out. So where's the incentive to do it right? They don't have one.
Yeah, exactly. And that's just the craziness of the whole system. And another thing about those old bankers was they also knew, when I was a kid, my dad could go into the bank. He could have gotten a loan for whatever amount of money he wanted, because the banker, they knew him. And they knew his word was as good as anybody's. He was going to stick by. If he had to work 5 jobs to pay off the loan that he had gotten, he was going to do it. And that's something about the banking system now that we don't have.
And those people banked at the same bank. I mean, I got my first bank account, I think I was 11 or 12. I was picking strawberries for my grandfather at 10 cents a quart, and I'd save that money up and I put it in the bank. I had a bank account. I was so proud of it. And if I'd stayed in that town, I probably would have continued to bank with that bank. And you know who the banker is, you know who your teller is. You go to school with that one's son or daughter, and everybody knows everybody, and there's a lot of trust there. But now it's all these big corporate banks. Nobody knows anything. And they don't care. They just say, how can I make money right this minute? But I tell you what, if those bankers and those mortgage companies had to hold those mortgages for, say, 10 years before they could sell them, they'd be a lot pickier on who they loan money to.
Absolutely. But see, then and that's the problem with the Freddie Mae and the Fannie Macs, is that if you do that, you're a racist, because you're not giving, this group or that group enough loans. And it's ridiculous, because it's led to the chaos that we deal with.
Yeah. It's like, you didn't give him a loan because he's Black, Hispanic, or whatever. No, I didn't give him a loan because he's defaulted on the last 4 loans he got.
Right.
I don't.
He just repoed his car last week, and you want to give him a house? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it used to be you declare bankruptcy somewhere and you had a bankruptcy, man, you couldn't get anything for 7 years.
Yep.
I mean, you couldn't get a freaking gas station credit card.
Yep.
And now it's like, 15 minutes later, you don't have any more debt. Here, sign up for our Visa card. Well, the reason they don't have debt is they went through freaking bankruptcy.
Yep. Absolutely. All right, moving on to the next story, and this kind of ties somewhat into what we were just talking about in a lot of ways. So we'll throw this next one up here, and this is Vice President J.D. Vance talking about building houses and deporting illegals. So let's watch this real quick.
Yeah, so a few things about that, Sean. First, we probably need to build about 5 million new homes. And if you look in the red states, we're actually doing a very good job. One of the biggest challenges that we have in the housing market, aside from too many illegal aliens who are taking the houses of American citizens, is that in the blue states, you're not building enough houses. So you go to California. Why are so many people moving out of California? It's, yes.
I have a guess. There's no
Gavin
water,
Newsom.
no. Your friend Gavin Newsom.
Yeah, my friend Gavin Newsom.
Maybe if they put water and fire hydrants and reservoirs, that might help, right?
Yeah, but they're not building houses. You look at those terrible fires that happen in Los Angeles.
So
you
sad.
have people who are still trying to get the permitting to rebuild their houses. This happened so long ago. So we've got to get our blue states to build enough houses for their citizens, because our red states and the federal government is actually doing a really good job. By the way, one of the biggest cities where you're seeing housing costs come down? Austin, Texas, because they're choosing smart policies and they're building enough housing. Now,
Yeah. So, and that's, I mean, he hit the nail on the head, exactly what we were just saying. We need to build more houses, but we also need to deport those that are illegally taking up housing.
Yeah.
So, it's,
there's a finite amount of housing. And so there's a limited supply, but there's a huge demand because we have, 20, 30 million people who shouldn't be here. And even if they go, well, they're not buying the houses Americans want. Yeah, they're living in them. And they may have 4 or 5 families in a house so they can afford it. But the point is, they are still living in those spaces. And it puts pressure on supply. Therefore, when supply is down, demand is high, prices go up.
Yep. That's
so you can lower demand by deporting all the illegals and increase the supply by suspending some of these BS permitting and regulations so they actually build houses. You'll see the price come down.
well, and that
economics.
that's a great point, because one of the things that Sean Hannity brought up there was the California issue. Is like, how many people can build a home? Well, think of the fires, Palisade fires from, I think it was February of this year. Nobody started building their homes, and it's by design. The red tape that you have to go through to even start construction and the amount of money you have to spend. I think I saw somewhere where they were estimating to rebuild the same houses would cost like 3 to 5 times as much as when they were originally built, like based off of income to cost at the time, because some of those homes were 30, 40 years old. But you're looking at exponentially exploding costs, and then the state of California adding regulation. And there were so many, they even passed regulation after the fires to make it harder for people to rebuild their homes. Well, and that's insanity.
And why? Because they want the land.
Yes.
They know eventually the people will give up and they'll sell their property, and either speculators will come in and buy it, or the city will come in. But in the meantime, what the city will do, once you sell it, you can't hold, you hold, if you own it, you hold on to your previous zoning. But the minute you sell it, they can rezone it.
Yeah.
And they may rezone it, single family, or they may rezone it multifamily, or they may rezone it high density housing and put it in apartments. And then they'll say, well, if you're doing apartments, you got to have so many that are Section 8, and they're going to destroy Pacific Palisades. But that's what they want to do. They want to get the rich guy, screw him over. But a lot of those people aren't rich. They were house rich, but they're not rich. Once the house went away, they had no assets.
Yep, exactly. And it's absolute insanity. And we're looking at, this in all of these blue states. I mean, obviously everybody knows I live in Illinois. Heaven help me. But it's another state where they're trying to make it more and more of a hellacious place to live than ever before. And it's insane that we have these politicians that they're not thinking about the everyday American. They're not thinking about Americans that have been here for their whole life, for generations. They're thinking about, the ideology of, communist, Marxist, of multiculturalism and all this other garbage, because they secretly hate our country and they hate our way of life and they want to get rid of it. So, and we're looking at that, staring that down the barrel of a 45 caliber leftist pistol right now.
Yeah.
So, anyways, so why do you think, in like talking about like the judges, and we talked about the Supreme Court ruling from today, why are they blocking these common sense immigration enforcement's moves? Like it seems like every other day some judge is blocking something that is clearly within the purview of the president. And why is that? Why can they not think about the overall health of the country?
It's the wrong president to them. If Biden had done the exact same policy, no one would have complained. They might have groused and bitched a little bit, the immigration lawyers and that, but you wouldn't see the wholesale rebellion amongst the, going to filing lawsuits every 2 seconds like you do now.
Yeah.
And they will literally cut off their nose to spite their face because they hate Trump so much. And an example of that is the Lincoln Project. They are theoretical conservative. They claim to be conservatives, but they're not. All they are rabid anti-Trump people. And all they can do is they will be in favor of anything that they think will hurt him. And it's just insanity.
Yes.
What I want to see, and I'm looking forward to it, is in 2028, what are they going to do when Trump isn't running for office? He is such a motivation for them. Is their engagement, their civil engagement, their voting, all that, is it just going to fall off a cliff? Because they're not voting for the Democrats. They're voting against Trump.
Yes. And this is another side note, but it's a very, very important conversation to have. Is that let me phrase it this way. I do agree with Trump, and I didn't think I would ever say this in my lifetime. I do agree with Trump on his premise and his instinct to nuke the filibuster and pass certain laws through the Senate right now, while they know that they would have the votes. Stuff like election integrity stuff, that would be the number one thing. Because I do believe that the Democrats they will pull out all of the stops in the midterms to try and win, and the soft spined Republicans that need to be led to the water to even get a drink by somebody like Trump, they engage in this whole, no, we've got a decorum, and we're way past that. We're in a zero-sum game with the Democratic Party right now, because as we just saw in New York with the election of Zoran Mamdani and all this other stuff, they're literally electing communists and Islamofascists all in one person, an extremely leftist maybe one of the most leftist politicians ever to be in the United States, and he is the mayor of our number one city.
Yeah.
And his ideas are garbage, and they won't work, because you run out of, as in the words of a very smart person, the problem with communism is you run out of other people's money. And when
Margaret Thatcher.
Margaret Thatcher. Yeah. Couldn't think at the time, but yeah, that is the fundamental problem. And they'll do all of this crazy stuff, and New York will start to fall apart. New York has fallen apart before in the 1970s. And it took a tough-minded man like Rudy Giuliani to pull it out and push crime prevention and all this other stuff. But we're going to get a front row seat to this. But that is the Democratic Party, in my opinion. The old school, the old kind of centrist Democrat, Joe Lieberman types they're not in that party anymore.
No. Yeah, the Joe Manchins, the Sam Nunns, those kind of guys, even the Tip O'Neills, they don't exist anymore.
No.
And the Democrats have catered to the extreme left base for the primaries, to get elected, that now they don't know what to do with it. It's like they have, you've created a monster, and now you're like, okay, how do I keep it from eating me?
Yeah.
And so and that's where you're seeing Schumer. I think he's done, because I think he's going to get primaried. And
Yes, agreed.
and it's because he has catered to them, but he doesn't really believe what they believe.
Yes, exactly.
I think the camera went out here. Let me see if I can.
Oh.
Well, I might be able to fix it. Sometimes it goes out, and I can change the definition, and it'll come back on. There it is.
Yeah. So we've got and that's really what Trump is saying. He is saying he sees the Democrats, because they are going to move further left, because the older guard, which is much more of, the Schumers, the Pelosi's, that guard is going to be gone in the next 2 to 4 years. And once that happens, it's going to be turned over to even more of the rabid of the squad types, because that area is growing. That is look at the youth in each party. It seems like on the Republican side, we've got guys coming up that are younger, that are much more in the vein of the founding ideology, and not so much in this neocon vein. But on the left, they're moving further. They're moving closer to Joseph Stalin and Mao Zedong than they are to any semblance of America. And
that's the Gen Zs.
Yes.
Gen
what
Alpha.
They're going to do?
Gen Alpha is conservative.
Right. Yes, but see what they're going to do. They're going to come and say, "Oh, we just have to nuke the filibuster, and we can pass whatever we want because we have 52 votes." Yep, let's do it, and they'll do it.
Yeah,
and that's what Trump's saying. He's saying, guys, we're not going to be dealing with Chuck Schumer. We're going to be dealing with AOC.
Yeah, and I can guarantee you the Democrats will nuke the filibuster in a heartbeat if it did put their stuff through.
And they'll pack the court. They'll put 15 justices on the Supreme Court and ram every. And once that happens, and this is not this is not hyperbolic. This is absolutely what they want to do. Once they do that, bye Second Amendment.
Yep.
And once blue states actually have the approval of a higher court, they will start confiscating firearms.
Yeah, and then there will be a lot of violence.
Yes. Yep.
Because there's a lot of people who say, I don't care what the Supreme Court says, I know what the Constitution says, and you ain't taking my guns.
Yep. And every house on a mountain will turn into Ruby Ridge, and every community will turn into a Waco, Texas, without the crazy ideology.
What you also see is you'll see a lot of red states who'll say, yeah, we're not going to do that. And the feds will come in and say, you must confiscate. And they're going to go, no.
Yep.
And because, we know what the Constitution says. Well, the Supreme Court says, I don't give a shit about the Supreme Court.
Yep.
I worry about the Constitution.
It's funny because at the founding, there was almost no real weight put behind the Supreme Court. It doesn't have it's never had an enforcement wing.
No.
It's the only branch without an enforcement wing, and that's by design, because you shouldn't have an enforcement wing. They are meant to back up, or to say they're just meant to basically define whether something's constitutional or not.
Yeah. Well, and that was Andrew Jackson. Marshall's made his decision. Now let's see him enforce it.
Yes, exactly.
So, but what you end up with, if you don't, is you end up with a court like in Brazil, where they take the president and put him in prison just without a trial, or they go to an American company and say, you must take this person off of Twitter or Facebook, and we're going, excuse me, you're Brazil, we're America. Well, we don't care. You got to do it anyway. Or you must return this person to Brazil. Yeah, no, sorry. But they really but they throw people in jail without trial routinely. And they have stifled free speech. And Democrats have tried it here, Republicans too, to a lesser degree. But if you don't have a Supreme Court in there to say, hate speech is legal because the Constitution doesn't define hate speech in any way, it doesn't mention it. It just says speech. And so it's It's going to get ugly.
Yes, 100%. 100%. So moving to the next one, and this is Eric Darty. We'll bring that up, and this is this is in a church, the Restoration of Christian Values in the United States. Outrage exploded in North Carolina as a church has been training its own members on how to not only hide illegals, but to push back against ICE and Border Patrol agents' attempts to arrest them. This is something that I have quite a bit to say. Let's watch this 52-second video.
And then you'll be in a signal chat during your shift, and we're asking you to please post the details in the signal chat.
This is not a church service. This is a training being run by Siembra, North Carolina. It's called Safe to Work, Safe to School. All those people are here because they do not want Donald Trump's masked armed federal agents on the streets of Charlotte. They watched what happened in LA, they watched what happened in Chicago, and they're all here to be trained about how to get their neighbors and their friends and their coworkers safely to work and safely to school, to push back on the Trump administration and what they are doing. It's a Monday night. We are at the Dilworth United Methodist Church in Charlotte, and the turnout is incredible. I'm going to show you again.
But we are worried not only about violent overreaction by Border Patrol, putting people in the immediate area of this. We are worried about, we don't want to.
This is something I have quite a bit to say about because I would have known beyond a shadow of a doubt it was in the United Methodist Church.
Yeah.
next to the what's the one that's always inviting
or Presbyterian or
Presbyterians are pretty bad about just basically embracing the woke, whatever it is. But a Methodist church actually just recently had a denominational split because a large portion of them didn't agree with that. So, and we've got a couple of people that have just jumped in that we're going to bring in for our next little bit. But let's talk about this real quick, and then we'll get them teed up to come in, and I'll bring them in when we're talking about this. So, actually, I'll just bring them in now. We got JJ Carroll. How are you, brother?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
what's up,
Just
JJ?
Fine.
Good. CIA Jeff doing well.
Yep. So, and I'm not Khalid. Khalid had a power outage, and I had to jump in and pinch hit at the very last minute. So,
It's all right. Nope. I'm glad to
and
be
then
here.
we've
Thank
got-
you.
And then we've got my brother, Mr. Mike Glover. How are you?
Good. How are you guys?
You look cold,
man.
Mike.
I'm bundled up. It's a little chilly here in Utah.
So you should be in Arizona. That's nice and comfortable down here.
I know. Maybe I'll move there.
Yeah. You know what? Actually, let's tee that video up because this is actually, you guys see this real quick. What we were just talking about, and then we can get the whole panel's input on this. And we're kind of talking about the strains of basically the great replacement that's going on in this country right now. And so let's watch this. This is at a church in North Carolina. So bring that video back up, and we'll watch it again. Get you guys' reaction to it.
And then you'll be in a signal chat during your shift, and we're asking you to please post the details in the signal chat.
This is not a church service. This is a training being run by Siembra, North Carolina. It's called Safe to Work, Safe to School. All those people are here because they do not want Donald Trump's masked armed federal agents on the streets of Charlotte. They watched what happened in LA, they watched what happened in Chicago, and they're all here to be trained about how to get their neighbors and their friends and their coworkers safely to work and safely to school, to push back on the Trump administration and what they are doing. It's a Monday night. We are at the Dilworth United Methodist Church in Charlotte, and the turnout is incredible. I'm going to show you again.
But we are worried not only about violent overreaction by Border Patrol, putting people in the immediate area of this. We are worried about, we don't want to.
So we
Wow.
have churches training people on how to essentially break the law. So That's kind of crazy. And as a person that grew up, I mean, as a pastor's son, when I was actually born in a church parsonage, and my dad would be rolling over in his grave, God rest his soul, to see something like that. But yeah, it's pretty incredible. But JJ, I'll go to you first. What's your just snap reaction to seeing something like that?
Well, the first reaction is there needs to be action taken immediately against this group, and anyone caught taking people to and from work or school, that's called 8 USC 1324. You're aiding and abetting illegal aliens in their movement and their quote safely means hiding from law enforcement. So there's no different. They need to be arrested. We either live in a nation of law and order or we don't, right? We need to really get down to the brass tacks. And then when I watch a pastor like that, look, I'm Catholic. I have massive problems with Catholicism right now. Not my faith, the facilitators, but all of these pastors and these priests, be it the Pope Leo, the illegal alien, this man, all the other evangelical preachers, Protestants, they're not doing God's work. They're committing crimes against our government. What is wrong? What does everybody not understand about being illegally in the country? Does everyone understand that America immigrates more people annually than the entire world combined? We have one. I asked somebody this. I was interviewed, and I said, "Well, how many legal immigrants do you think that we immigrate into America every year?" And they go, "About 100,000." I go, what planet are you on? It's 1.2 million a year. And he's like, "What?" And I go, "Yes. So either you change the law and make it 10 million, or allow us to do the job that we're being paid to do and that we swore an oath to do." So my first reaction is, where's the legal remedies to this? And the legal remedies to this, they don't exist because we don't have the willpower, the desire, nor do we have the cojones to do what needs to be done. And thus, we live in chaos. And these officers, one last point I'd like to make. When did it become normal to physically assault our law enforcement? When did that become acceptable in our society to do that? It's beyond me. And
Floyd riots.
Excuse me?
The George Floyd riots.
Well, yeah, this is that and what is that? What's the one that happened in Missouri? I'm sorry, the Ferguson.
Michael Brown.
Yeah.
Michael Brown. Yeah.
So
it's 2 hours away from where I live. Yep.
It's maddening, guys. It's maddening.
Well, there was something today in the news that in Charlotte, 30,000 kids did not show up for school today because
I saw that
because they're afraid to get arrested, which means 30,000 illegal immigrant children in that school system. How much is that costing Charlotte? How much is it degrading the educational experience for everybody else because those kids don't speak English, so they got to have special tutors and linguists and all this crap? And these people are too stupid to realize that by coddling these criminals, they're damaging their own children's educational outcomes.
Can I add to that? Because I think this is important. You're hitting a very good point. There are almost 15 to 20% of Charlotte's population is illegal aliens. They have 150,000 illegal aliens in 900,000 city. What this is the big picture takeover, the replacement. Because they have such a concentration of illegal aliens, mainly Hispanics, they're able to put their own people into positions of authority. So you have an illegal alien Colombian that he's gay, married his first wife at 18 years old and got him citizenship. She was a lesbian. They got divorced right after that when they, quote, discovered they're both gay, and he retained his citizenship. He's now in the city council. This is what's happened in Dearborn, Michigan. This is what's going to happen in Cincinnati, Ohio. This is the bigger picture. We are losing population, and they're reproducing at a 5 times the rate, and they are taking our republic, our system, our constitution, and they're using it to destroy us. And it is maniacal, but I will tip my hat to them because they're doing it and they're winning.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. Well said. All great points. Absolutely. It's maddening for people that are actually engaged in paying attention to all of this stuff. And then it gets even equally maddening when you try and bring people's attention to it. They either don't want to listen or they want to say, well, that's not the way it is. And it's really, really mind blowing. Mike, I'm going to go to you. What is it, or what is the message being sent when a church is teaching its people like to basically break the law? And this is not a law that has to do with, as Christians, obviously we're going to go against the law that's going to break our belief in Scripture or what the foundation of our faith is. That is something that we don't fight against. But also, if you read the Bible, God is a very it's a book of order and law, and that's the reality of it. So, but what does it say when a church is willing to go to the lengths of hosting these with hundreds of people to teach them how to break the law?
Yeah, they're just like JJ said, they're not doing God's work, but that's what they'll use as justification to break the law. They know they're breaking the law, but again, a lot of people are lost in this country. They're looking for purpose and they're jumping on the bandwagon. And the problem is, if there's no consequences for them doing what they're doing openly, by the way, then you're going to have more laws being broken, more chaos. And again, I like to put the country first. I like to put American citizens first. After sacrificing a lot of years of my life overseas for the country, seemingly on behalf of special interest. And I think about all of the time that I invested, all the blood that was shed. And I'm like, at a minimum, we should be getting our stuff together here at home. And, I live in Heber City. It's probably the whitest place in the country. I'm like the minority. I'm the only minority in this town. I mean, 16,000 people in our community, like 70+% LDS, Church of Jesus Christ, the Latter-day Saints. And going into Walmart last night was literally like going into Tijuana, which I was just at last month. And everybody in there, nobody spoke English, even the employees. And I'm looking around and I'm like, what is going on here? Well, it's really easy to see what's going on. They're likely being facilitated in an underground railroad. That's the best way for them to name it, because it justifies, again, like a civil rights movement. Yep. And their morality to justify them breaking the law. And they're literally moving these people up from Salt Lake City, where there's ICE raids that are happening. So this isn't just happening in a church in North Carolina. This is happening all over the country, inside all of our communities, where it's obviously and overtly being violated. And we need to gain control. I am on board with everybody here. I have empathy as an immigrant family myself, one generation apart. But all of my family on the Korean side did so legally. And so they went through the hardship and the difficult process, which is no doubt difficult, but they followed the letter of the law because they're law-abiding citizens now. And they're not breaking the law overtly. I mean, everybody in there, especially the person who's in charge, I'm not sure if the pastor was in charge or whoever was putting it together, there should be accountability.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely agree with all that. We had a super chat here that is kind of an interesting thing, and we'll get to the whole Islam thing, but it is interesting because Islam politically seems to tend to lean left, social democrats, that kind of thing. It's because the left is the easiest vehicle for them to use to get into the country, because they're sympathetic to that. And quite honestly, if Christians and Catholics were as engaged politically as these minorities are, as JJ said, they get into these positions of power, whatever level they can get into, they get into. And this is speaking of both people, Muslims and illegals from south of the border. I don't know if you guys missed this story or heard this story a couple of weeks ago. In Iowa, in Des Moines, the head of the superintendent of the school district was an illegal immigrant that had overstayed his visa like 20 years and was making like $350,000 a year as a superintendent of the Des Moines, Iowa school district, and had multiple charges of violent crime on his record when they started looking into it. That's in Iowa. I mean, you can't get much more like that's cornfields. That's like America as it gets, And as far as like country America, and like this is going on here. are you kidding me? And that's what we're seeing is that, but they will get into positions of power because then they can use those positions to make their cause bigger. And that's especially prevalent in the Islamic communities in this country for sure. So we'll move on to the next one. So we'll cue this up. This one is from Right Angle News, and we'll watch this about percentage of illegals collecting food stamps and that kind of strain on the system.
There are 42 million people in this country that need food stamps on a weekly basis. And we're saying people deliberately instead of Americans, because most of the people that are on food stamps aren't even from this country. 45% of Afghanistan immigrants are on food stamps, 42% of Somali immigrants, 34% of every immigrant from Iraq, 23% of Haitians, 59% of all illegal aliens are collecting food stamps, meaning that most of the people getting food stamps from the U.S. government and the U.S. taxpayer are not even Americans. Think about that. And we didn't know about any of this before the government shutdown started, but thanks to Democrats, we can confirm tonight that millions of Joe Biden illegal aliens, people who crossed the border when Joe was president, are now collecting food stamps from a program funded by hardworking American taxpayers.
All right. So, Mike, I'll start with you on this one, and then we'll go around the panel. So with that level of, why are we bringing these people in just to be a drain on the system? Like, what is the logical, what's the innocent, benign explanation for bringing in 69 or 60% of the strain as far as food stamps go in this country?
Well,
what's the point of that?
I think it's the weaponization of the immigration system by the Democrats, who are obviously using it as an opportunity to leverage the vote. I mean, it's rock the vote, right? And you want to rock the vote, you create policies that are driving more people to your side on your team. I mean, it's not surprising to me that by demographic, not only are those countries being supported with the illegal immigration with taxpayer dollars in the country, but look how much we're investing in those countries overseas, even paying off the Taliban, for example. I mean, that thing is a cash cow. How much money did we invest in the global war on terror? And the last thing that we're concerned about is the American service member's life that has been impacted and affected by that event. Mm-hmm. And we're more concerned. Like, the VA system here is so completely and utterly broken. I can't even get an appointment for my lower back that was injured in the military as a special operations sergeant major who has like the legitimate package, 100% service connected, disabled, total and permanent. You can't get more broken than that. And I'm a year on a waiting list to get a surgery for my back while we're churning out millions and millions of dollars, both in the country for illegal immigrants from foreign countries and foreign countries, period, overseas. It's maddening.
Absolutely. And if you guys don't believe, and if anybody thinks that government-run healthcare is the way to go, anybody that's on the VA's dime could tell you a completely different story. 100%.
Can I ask Mike a question? As a border patrol agent, I felt throughout my 24 years, there was only 2 years of Donald Trump's presidency that I felt, and it wasn't his fault, but only 2 years that I felt like I was on a winning team and the people in positions of authority cared, like they truly cared about us. How is it for a war fighter to come back to your country and see the same people that you were fighting are here and they're living better lives than you? I'm curious and interested to hear your perspective on that, because I battle with this, but I think your feeling of betrayal, and maybe I'm wrong, your feeling of betrayal has to trump mine significantly.
Yeah, I do think as American service members see what's happening in the country, where you have the president of the United States justifying a terrorist from Saudi Arabia literally in the White House with a lot of power and influence, a former Al-Qaeda operative who was literally in Guantanamo for several years, being catered to and the red carpet being rolled out, it is very demeaning to the American service member. Members of the CIA that I work with have expressed that same disdain for that kind of behavior. Because look, I get international relationships. I get that we have to worry about our economy 10, 20, 30 generations down the road, but at what cost? And a lot of service members stand on the value systems on their dog tags: loyalty, duty, honor, selfless service, all these things that are ingrained in us. And when you see the levels of betrayal from the pullout of Afghanistan, the way we treated allies, to allowing basically red carpets being rolled out for terrorists, with a mass immigration of potential jihadists that we talk about often on the show, it's disgusting to say the least. And look, I had expectations from the government and the administration. Some of those people are meeting those expectations. Joe Kent is one of them, the director of NCTC. He's doing everything he can. I talked to him personally a couple of weeks ago on the phone, and he vented about specific things that he couldn't get across the finish line because he's battling the administration and the key players and key roles, because I think they're more concerned with, their legacy, the lobbyist relationship, their portfolio, whatever it is, but not Americans' interest. And so I think it's a massive betrayal. I feel like I'm in that pool of people who want to be optimistic about the future, but it's hard when every single day it's like you're already down and you're getting kicked in the head, in the back of your head while you're down. And have you seen one press conference on how they're going to change the VA system at all?
Nope.
Are they going to approve Ibogaine for treatment for veterans that we know is working? Are they going to do anything for American citizens that have served this country? And the answer is not in the near future. And that's disgusting. And I know you guys have dealt with a lot and do it every single day in a different capacity, but I can't even imagine the frustration between veterans, service members, and also, law enforcement across the board that are feeling the same way.
Well, you look at the SNAP, just for example, you have at least half of the SNAP recipients are illegal aliens. And people say, well, what does that do to America? Well, understand there's 50 million illegal aliens in America. So that SNAP number is even higher than that. 50 million. You have 55 million legal immigrants in America. You have 105 million more people on an infrastructure that's supposed to service 340 million is servicing 450 million. And then what do we have? What's the biggest crisis in America right now? Housing.
Yeah.
Well, why do you think there's a housing problem, guys?
Yep.
What is America? Are you that stupid that you can't understand that we're housing 105 million people when we have infrastructure to house 340 million? And then we have all of our servicemen living under the bridges, homeless. How about $300 billion we take from Ukraine and put it into VA services? I mean, my God, you know what? When you really talk about what should be done in America, it's so simple. And then you have to ask yourself, whoa, if it's so simple, why are they not doing it? Because they can't get power and money by doing the right thing. That's it. That's all there is. How's AOC, who's as dumb as my thumb, after 5 years in the Congress, is now worth $20+ million? Can somebody explain that to me? How is John McCain Jr., Crenshaw, now he's been in 5 or 6 years, now he's worth between 5 and 10 million? Can somebody explain that to me? He doesn't seem like a very, very intelligent man to me. He's now worth $10 million on $175,000 a year. We have a problem. We have a massive problem in America. And we, the four of us and our family and extended, we are the host to the parasites. And when the host decides that we're not going to be eaten alive by parasites, we can win. But I don't know when that's going to be. And I don't think it's soon, guys. I just don't. I'm sorry.
No, too many people are too comfortable because we still have all of our amenities and all of our Netflix and all of our delivery food and all of that other crap, and people just aren't uncomfortable enough. That's the problem. And people don't want to know. I mean, I'll put a post up on a Facebook, on my personal Facebook, and the amount of vitriol you get just for trying to inform people of that is insane. And a lot of it comes from people in the church, which is crazy. It's like, Yeah, I don't. In the housing crisis, we actually talked about that before you guys got on. It's insane that now they're talking about 50-year mortgages. I mean, how insane is this? That's your fix. Buy a house at 20 and you might pay it off by the time you retire, guys. Are you freaking nuts? 30 years is bad enough. You know, it's not a fix, and that's not what we expect better from our people. And the sure way to do it, turn off the faucet. Like send the people that are here that don't have anything good for us, that are a drain on the system. And yeah, maybe it sounds cut and dry and not loving or whatever, but you know, you have to do, if you have cancer in your body, it has to be cut out.
Yeah, and you don't cut it out piece by piece, do you?
No.
You go and you eradicate all of it at once. So this idea that if we continue down this road on this very ineffective deportation. Look, I was just interviewed by a guy today, and he gave me the new data that he's received from CBP. CBP now is claiming about 600 arrests and deportations a day. 600. At that rate, we will need 150 plus years to remove everyone from our country. And let me go one step further. You have 55 million legal immigrants. A significant percentage of them will overstay their visa every year. So what's happened is you're arresting and deporting 600 a day, but another 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 are just overstaying their visas and become illegal aliens. The best analogy I can give you is my house is flooded. Somebody's given me a red Solo cup to get all the water out of my basement, and I'm sitting there cup by cup, and I look over at my neighbor, and my neighbor is double-fisted with hoses, and he's pouring water into my basement. That's what's happening in America right now, and people have no idea. They have no idea. Let me give you another step on. Let me tell you how ineffective all this is. There's one chief in the Border Patrol, sector chief, that is doing interior patrol. That's Chief Bovino. Do you know how many sector chiefs there are in the United States Border Patrol? 20. Only one is doing his job. Only one. He's from, if you look at the California, the border of California, he's responsible for a little tiny piece called El Centro on the very eastern side. So he is a small sector chief. He's in Charlotte right now. What in God's name is the chief in El Centro doing in Charlotte? And there's no other chief. That shows you, because ICE, the highest leadership of ICE and the high leadership in the Border Patrol, are the same MFers that committed treason against America and followed and facilitated Mayorkas and Biden's orders during their reign of terror for 4 years. The same people that committed treason in the Border Patrol and ICE are still running the Border Patrol and ICE.
Well, I think there's a way we can, I don't know, solve it. We can definitely help fix it. First is, okay, they're starting to do it. Everybody on SNAP has to reapply.
Yep.
And they should. And if anyone who's an alien, legal or illegal, should not be getting public assistance like that. You don't come here to be a leech. You come here to make something of yourself, and that means you have to work. So we should not be giving any financial services of any kind, especially not to illegal aliens, and not to legal aliens either. But for the illegals, no housing, no food, no education. I know the courts have said, yeah, we got to educate their kids, but no. And the only aid you give them is you say, I'll give you a one-way plane ticket back to your country of origin. And that is it. But what we should be doing is rounding them up. And if they say, I don't want to go home, say, great, you're going to Mexico. You came in from Mexico, you're going back through Mexico. Apparently Mexico wasn't bad enough for you that you didn't feel safe there because you traveled the country to come here. We need to have a zero tolerance attitude about this and just say, if you're an alien, and my grandparents were were born in Germany and all that, I get it, but you know what? They never took a dime in public assistance either. They bought a farm, they worked their asses off, and we just need to say, and the gravy train has to stop. You need to discourage those people. You need them to go back and tell their friends, yeah, don't come here, man. It's tough. It's expensive as hell. They don't give you anything, and you end up living on the street. Well, until we catch you and throw your ass back over the wall. But that's what we need to do. And they will say, if they don't get any food support, any housing support, anything like that, how many of them do you think are just going to simply self-deport?
All of them.
Yeah, because it's better back home. I'd rather be in Guatemala. Okay, great. Here's your plane ticket. See ya.
You know, and what's interesting, Jeff, is everything that you're asking and demanding, do you know it's already been codified in the Immigration Nationality Act? It is a law. It is an absolute law. Yeah, the only person that enforced it, he's not enforcing it now, but was President Trump, and he got called a racist. Do you know that as a Border Patrol agent or immigration officer, if I fine you, you're illegal. You're legal with a resident alien. If I can determine that you have the potential to go on government assistance, that's all I need to deport you. That's it. And if I fine you on any type of government assistance, you are immediately deportable.
Yeah,
but we don't do that. It's maddening. Like, look, you got Mike saying I need to get in and get back surgery. Why should any warfighter come home and he should be given a gold card? Go wherever you want, man. I don't care.
Agreed.
Why? Yeah. Because we took the $300 billion from Ukraine. We took the $30 billion we've given to Israel and all over the people. We've brought it all back, and we're going to take care of our people. What a novel approach. Why is that so hard for people to wrap their brain around?
And all the money that we'll save in SNAP by not giving it to illegals.
Yeah.
Give it to the freaking VA.
But it's even worse than that. It's the mocking of us, meaning you're getting SNAP, and then you go on and then you create videos and you show me that you're actually eating better than me. Your pantry is stocked and mine's not. And then Americans sit here and we just take it and we take it and we take it. It's like, where are all the alpha males? When is that going? When are the alpha males going to rise up? And I keep telling people, when that day, will that happen in my lifetime? I don't know. But when the alpha males rise up in America and they say, I've had enough, and they go, it will be a scorched earth. It will be violence, pain, and suffering that Americans could never wrap their brain around. And men are going to do things that they never thought they could do or would do. And it's going to be horrible. History has already proven this to be a fact, a true fact. When are we going to hit that? And I think it is, John, when everybody gets to the point where their Netflix isn't working. Their food's not good. They're starting to starve. And if you think that's not around the corner, you're a fool. You're an absolute fool. And when those Muslims start to come after us for the name of Islam, and they start to kill us and take over our cities, they will take over New York City within a year. They will just dominate New York City. It will be over with.
Well, they're already having multiple thousand-member prayer vigils. They're open in Times Square, like 3,000-4,000. I mean, Times Square is full. And the reason, and you have to understand the thought behind this, the reason they're doing this is a show of force.
Yes.
It's not that they don't have mosques to go to pray. Could you imagine what the left-wing media would do if Christians were 5,000-6,000 Christians showed up in Times Square to have to sing and pray? They'd be freaking out. But
I compared it. We talked about this yesterday, or Monday, and I compared these 10,000 Muslims praying and yelling in Times Square and London and everything else. This is the modern equivalent of the Nazi SA marches, torch marches, where they'd all line up and they'd march through a city carrying torches. It was to intimidate anybody who challenged them. And that's what these quote unquote prayer gatherings are about too. They're not there to worship Allah. They're there to threaten everybody else. And that's exactly what it's for. It's no different than the KKK marching with sheets and a burning cross.
Oh, it's a great point. What do you guys think of my analysis is this? We're seeing the rise of Islam in America, but we are also beginning to see a rise of Christianity in America and Europe. There is just intellectually looking at like a tabletop exercise. There's going to be a religious war. There's no way that does not happen. What do you guys think of that? You think I'm off base on that?
I think that this is mounting up, because what's going on is the chasm between the sides is getting wider and wider and wider. That's the difference. Is like it's getting to a point where you can't, and I know I always laugh at the coexist bumper stickers, because some of those ideologies aren't taught to coexist with anybody. It's just the reality of it. They're meant to conquest, and we have 1,400 years of history on Islam's conquest. It's just the reality of it. But what we're seeing, I think, is, in the wake of the Charlie Kirk assassination, it'd be a great example of this, is the amount of people that were turning back to faith was insane, insane. And I think everybody probably saw it, and everybody that was a moment that stopped everybody kind of in their tracks to say, oh, this is serious. Because it was ideologically driven, and that's the reality of it. Is as Christians, typically we aren't the ones that want to go out and kill and conquest, and but I think we're on the verge of possibly having to spin up a crusade, for lack of a better term,
and
because
the original crusades were in response to the Muslims taking over the Holy Land, which had been Christian.
Yep.
Now, when people return to Christianity, we need to tell them to stay away from that United Methodist Church in North Carolina. And my grandfather, who was a Methodist, would be rolling over in his grave if he heard that as well. He was very much a staunch law and order kind of guy.
Right. Yep. So, Mike, I'm going to go to you. You haven't talked in a minute. So, what are your thoughts on this, and where we stand with the ideological divide? And it is interesting because I played a video on Monday of a guy that was talking about the marriage between the radical Marxist and the radical Islamists, and how they're kind of marching together as this one monolithic group, and that's inside the Democratic Party. But what do you think of this ideologically and probably theological divide that we're seeing right now?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because, I think Marxist radical Islamists are very well organized, and they plan to strategize, and people think they operate very decentralized, and it's not true. They're very well organized. They give guidance to imams who communicate to communities, and that's coming top down. They might be segregated or separated or divided by borders, states, countries, but they're really unified in their message, right? They're radical across the board. They know what they want to do, and ultimately means the demise of the infidel. And somebody had mentioned it to me on my Patreon. I thought it was a very interesting point. He said, what if we never see a terrorist attack in the country from radical Islamists? He said, what if the entire campaign of them migrating, for example, into Europe was a deliberate campaign? And I said, well, stop speculating, because that's true. They legitimately did that. In fact, when I was in Libya in 2012, I was reading intelligence reports that were classified then, have later become unclassified since, that were reporting the migration and movement of jihadists who were not moving there to conduct attacks, but moving there to assess, recruit, to obviously, which is how you campaign foreign fighters, is you're on a recruiting tour to send them in to get their jihad on into the country X, Y, Z. But I think it's very interesting that you might not see a radical Islamic attack because they're playing into the big picture, and the race that they're doing across the globe is to infiltrate with access and placement all of their influence. And guess what? It's working. It's an effective strategy. And you know what our strategy is? It's infighting. It's division. We're not unified in any voice. It's segregation of non-denominational faiths. And so we can't stand unified because none of the religious leaders, which I assume JJ has some insight on this on the Catholic side. I grew up Baptist, and Methodist and then Catholic for a period of time, but I have never seen any leaders in my faith step up and go, enough is enough, and stand for the right. And that's a huge problem because they're doing the opposite and campaigning. And again, the Crusades lasted 200 solid years, and even more so the small skirmishes up to 400 years. And again, I hate to speculate, but I think we might be headed potentially towards those times. The difference is we don't have unified leadership as Christians together to potentially combat it. And that's problematic if you're going against a unified radical Islamist.
Yes, because they are monolithic. That's the thing that they have the ability to think as one and to act as one because they all follow the same rule book. So yeah, and we want to spend time fighting over this and that and speculating, and it's mind blowing. But here's an important point to kind of drive this home. I saw this the other day and then looked into it. So, and I'll get pretty close to the right numbers off the top of my head. So, if you identify as a liberal in the United States, the replacement birth rate for somebody that would align themselves on the left side of the aisle, so Democrat to hardcore leftist, birth rates are like 1.1, right? It's not replacement. You need, for a couple, obviously, you need at least 2 to just get to replacement. Now, with evangelical Christians and people that are on the right, we actually are still reproducing at replacement rates. But when you add them together, we're below. What do you think Islamic Muslims replacement rates are in the United States? So the conservative side, it's like 2.1, 2.2, something like that. What do you think Islamists are, JJ?
I wrote a book on this, and the UN data I don't have in front of me, but there is as high as 5 times.
Yeah, so it's 3.8 currently is what they speculate. So they're replacing at almost double the rate of us.
It's just depending on what country they come from. Yep.
Yeah, that's generational suicide. Is what it is. That is the death of our culture and society. That is the implementation of you. I mean, we already have 2 Sharia courts in Texas. Only handling, voluntary civil disputes. But if you get enough, there's a person that I follow a lot, and one of his favorite sayings is, we've never been a nation of laws. We never will be. We've been a nation of political will, and we always will be. If they get enough political will in this country, they will shift the entire country to their way of thinking. And it'll happen fast, and the people that haven't been paying attention will be like, how did we get here? Well, we got here because you guys weren't plugged in. We didn't have enough of us activated and plugged into what's really going on here. But I'll give you a few minutes to speak there, JJ, on this.
Well, you look at, everyone believes that everything happens, and the genesis of the world is America, and that's not true. The genesis of everything that happens in Europe, and then it comes to the U.S. Europe is a dead continent. They're dead unless they have some mass awakening, Christian awakening, and then they go to war with not only the Muslims, but their own people. Will they be able to? Look, you're looking at Belgium. I think Belgium, the 80% of everyone under 18 is a Muslim. 80, they're dead. They're gone. Last year, Ireland, 94% of all births were to non-Irish. 94%, not 9.4, which is bad enough. 94. They're dead. They're a dead nation. There are only 6 to 8 million people. So you bring in 1 million, and then they reproduce 5 in one generation. Now they're 5 to 6 to 7 million. It's over. You've lost. The top 10 cities population-wise in England are run by Muslim mayors. Their equivalent to our DHS, Christy Noem, is an immigrant, Muslim immigrant from like Pakistan, I think, or something like that. She controls the homeland security of England. England's dead. America is close. You have Dearborn, Michigan. You have Texas. You have LA. It's just a matter of time before they outbreed us, and they're more violent, and they're more. I said this on my show. and don't take offense to this, Mike, because at first it's going to sound crazy. I believe they are a honorable adversary for this reason. The Muslims, the radical Muslims, or even just the mainstream Muslims in America, they tell us exactly what they're going to do, and then they do it. That is, we don't have to like them that they hate America and they're going to take it over. I get that sentiment. But as an alpha male, I have to look at another alpha male, and he's telling me, I'm going to take over your country, and then I'm going to make you subservient to me. And if you don't, I'm going to kill you. You know what I have to do? I have to take my hat off to him, because I have to say, you got some big balls. I'm going to kill you with my bare hands, but you got some big balls to say that. And I have to respect that. As someone that is in law enforcement, that's gone to, quote, war with these people, you have to acknowledge it. To not acknowledge it is your own detriment and death. Mike, do you think I'm off base by saying that? Because I find myself looking at these men, talking to them when I was arresting them on the border, and going, I have to respect that you're so determined, and you're going to tell me that, damn it, you're going to kill me and take over my country, and you're doing it.
I one time in a pretty heavy fight killed a Libyan foreign fighter, and as I was doing sensitive site exploitation on his body, we rolled him over. He had an S vest on his chest. He had the detonator in his hand, and he had a fragmentation grenade, a Chinese frag, in the other hand. His AK was laying at his feet. He had, back in the day, Merrills and Solos were pretty popular. He had a Solo boots on his feet. He was in desert camouflage uniform, DCUs. And in his chest rig, which was all AK with the suicide belt with explosives on top of it, he had a picture of his kids in his vest.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the grimace in his face. I even jacked his watch, which I typically don't do stuff like that, but I wanted to remember him and be reminded of the adversary that I was going against and had a lot of respect for. Because I looked at him and thought to myself, this dude's living it.
Mm-hmm.
He's not just talking the talk. He's walking the walk in the field based on his ideology, his religion, and his core beliefs. The problem that I think we have as a nation is we've lost our core beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
We subscribe to religions through our cell phones on social media. That's our new religion. The Kardashians. Teenage girls have a higher suicide rate than ever before in history because they're trying to keep up with the Kardashians, and it's impossible. And so I think you're spot on. I have a lot of respect for the enemy that I fought on the battlefield, that at times I've drinking chai with. I know Jeff has certainly done this, but it's because there's something fundamental about believing in something and following through with that belief.
Mm-hmm.
And we're slipping away from that every single day in our country.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I'll quote Dr. Raymond Ibrahim, and somebody in the chat threw his name out earlier. He's a fantastic, just historian on Islam. He has a series of great videos on the Crusades and explains it in great detail. He's originally from Egypt, but used to work in the Library of Congress. A super brilliant person on this. But he actually says that originally Christianity at the time of the Crusades, it was considered what he calls a muscular religion. Well, I wouldn't classify Christianity as a muscular religion now, because we basically go into churches on Sundays and we have a rock concert and a TED talk, and and we drink our coffee and we walk away feeling good about stuff, and there's no challenge, there's no specifically to the men, and you're talking about alpha males as far as JJ was talking earlier. Very, very few alpha males want to go to a modern American church, just honestly, because it is geared towards the females. It is not built to actually inspire people to go out and defend the faith in any way, shape, or form, whether it be verbally or physically or whatever. It is, just be nice little Christians that don't ruffle feathers, you know, and this has become very, very apparent in this country over the last several years, is we're weak. We are weak and comfortable, and that is the biggest enemy of all, is comfort. That's one of our shirts I'm wearing right now. Comfort is your enemy. It's the thing that eats you and makes you into something that will not stand against any kind of adversity or anything that's coming our way, and it's coming quick.
Yeah, Christians need to remember that, yeah, you know, there was Jesus, there was teaching of peace and love and all that, but there was also archangels. There was Michael, there was Gabriel. And when, it was one of those, be nice until it's quits being kind, be nice. And we need to be able to recognize, okay, they're not coming here to sing Kumbaya. They're coming here to kill us, to force us to join their religion, to take over our homes and our cities and our families. And that's when you got to say, yeah, okay, that's enough. It's time to quit being nice.
But look at what they've done, though. Look at who their leader is, the Prophet Muhammad. It's about killing, domination, making your enemies subservient. And look what we have done to our Jesus. We have turned him to be so effeminate, so gay. We turned him into a gay Jesus. Look, if I see another picture of Jesus with soft blonde brown hair and rose-colored cheeks, they say that Jesus Christ, just historically, had to have walked over 20,000 miles in extreme weather. He would have been so leathery. He would have had deep ridges in his face. I've seen the pictures of the Shrouded Turin and what Jesus would have looked like. That's the Jesus that looks straight at your eyes and say, you're sinning, you're going to go to hell. And you get petrified, like, oh, please, God, have mercy on me. He's not an impotent gay Jesus with no muscles. He was about 5'10" and lean, about 175, 185 pounds of muscle from walking 20,000 miles. Do you think that our God, that powerful being that destroyed entire civilizations because they did not honor him, do you think that man, that being, would send down an effeminate gay son? Are you out of your mind? Even in my limited religious thinking, I would think that he would send down an impotent gay son. Are you out of your mind?
Well,
this is absurd.
He turned over the tables of the money changers in the temple. He was not, his first response was reason and logic. But if they weren't having it, he would say, okay, it's on. And,
and there's so that specific event is portrayed in all of the gospels, I believe. But there's one specific gospel, I think it's Mark, that actually goes a step further. That was a premeditated act. He went in and he saw the temple. He went out and fashioned a whip. He made a weapon. He didn't just start doing it. He went out and made a weapon and went in there and literally started violently attacking people because they weren't honoring God, because of the corruption that was going on. I mean, that's not a weak person.
No,
that's somebody that's an alpha male. In all honesty, that's a lion, as we call him, the Lion of Judah. That's what a lion would do. Is he would go in and he would see corruption and people being taken advantage of, and he would lash out against it. He told his disciples to buy swords. This is not some God of weakness. And I get frustrated with that because there's so many of these sweater vest wearing pleated pants pastors that don't want to actually say that because they've never actually done anything manly in their lives.
No.
And that's the fundamental problem. We don't have enough warriors in the pulpits that actually understand what it is. One of my favorite guys out there on the YouTube world, I've met him a couple of times, John Lovell, and he's now a pastor, a former Ranger, and preaching about this kind of stuff, wrote a book about this. We need more men like that to actually be teaching our young men that it's okay. It's okay to be, Psalm 144. Blessed be the Lord, my strength, that teaches my hands to make war and my fingers to fight. Does that sound like a weak God?
No,
No.
but they had to make them weak to make us all weak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why people turn away from the church. I haven't gone to a church service in years because the ones you find are just like, that's not what I believe, and that's not what I want to believe. It's that whole kumbaya, kissy huggy stuff, and we've got to take all these criminals into our homes. Says, yeah, no, we don't. Sorry, not doing that one.
Not when our house is falling apart. Not when we can't feed our families and keep our families safe. Not when you want to bring in 600,000 Chinese nationals, as my son's 14, and in 4 years, you're going to tell me that now my son has to compete with 600,000 Chinese students that we have no idea, but their transcripts are good. You're going to bring in people from India by the hundreds of thousands annually to compete for a job for my son. And now my son, as I'm sure you guys talked about this, the new average age of your first home is 40 years old. So my son has to wait till he's 40 years old unless I can leave him a large inheritance. Are you kidding me? What? The American dream has been killed. It's not dying, guys. It's dead. It's dead. But we allowed it to happen. Damn it.
Yeah.
We allowed it to happen. We allowed the weakest, most vile, and the most morally bankrupt and sexually perverse people take over all the levers of power. That's unbelievable what we sat down and allowed to have happen. Look what we were told just a couple years ago. You will say that a man can be a woman. You will say a man can have babies, and then in your emails, you will put your pronouns. I don't want to put my pronouns. Put your pronouns or you get fired. Take this shot or you leave the military. Take this shot or we're going to ostracize you from community. And guess what? The majority of Americans did. They took it. They took it. They were told you can go to strip joints and to Costco, but you can't go to church or school. What? Okay. And guess what our pastors did? Okay. Instead of pastors saying, nope, I'm going to run 10, 15 services nonstop on Sunday. We'll be separated, whatever you want to do, but I'm bringing my flock in. No, they didn't. They caved.
Yeah. Yeah. The vast majority of them absolutely did. 100%. And it's sad because that was the moment that could have been a massive revival, because if pastors would have stood up, and some did, some got arrested, some went to jail for having church.
That there was a test that most of them failed.
Yeah, they failed.
Yep. And now I see who you are. You're not a threat. Yeah. And that's kind of, I spoke to my wife about this several months back, is the reason that Christianity isn't necessarily under attack right now, we're kind of being left alone, is because we're not a threat to the deep state, to anything. And we should be.
They should be scared to death of us, but they're not. And that's why the Muslims are rolling through our towns.
And they're scared of them. They're scared of them. Because
absolutely.
they know what they can do.
Look what our government's done. Our government has said, you can do anything you want, but you just can't talk about Jews. You can't talk about Israel. You can't talk about anything. I mean, we live in beyond Alice in Wonderland. We live in the strangest times in American history, and our founding fathers would have already stacked bodies 10 deep down Main Street, America, all day long, stacking bodies, right? And what do? We do nothing. We allow all our money. Think about, they now say the Middle East wars that we got in, and our boys went over there and died and got maimed and hurt, and not one IDF soldier went to any of those wars. And those wars cost us $10 trillion. We have third world airports, third world hospitals. Our schools are crumbling. Our infrastructure sucks. Our subway system, people don't even want to go in it. There's rats in it. But don't worry, we rebuilt the Middle East multiple times over for $10 trillion. And no one's gone to jail. How is no one held accountable for these atrocities? Is what boggles my mind.
Yeah. Well, because they're all in the same groups together. It's a uniparty. That's the problem.
Well, it is. It is a uniparty, and a great example of that today is the Epstein files. They're colluding to help cover each other's asses because a significant percentage of them are pedophiles, period. And everyone knows it.
Decentralized Washington, D.C. Make those guys, hey, we have the technology. They can do this when they need to talk about laws and stuff on secure comms. Send them back and don't let them be centralized into one spot.
I agree with that. I believe Washington, D.C. should be a ghost town. And if we need a Department of Agriculture, we need a department of this, that, and the other, then it's scattered across the 50 states.
Department of Agriculture, put it in frickin' Iowa.
Why not?
Where the
Department of Defense should probably be in Colorado, in the mountains, where it's defensible, far away from the shore. Putting it all in one place is just stupid.
Yep.
It is.
Yep.
It's too much power.
But it also allows the lobbies and
they go to one place. One-stop shopping.
Concentrate power.
Yeah, one-stop shopping for influence peddling.
Yes.
I mean, do you think our government is so corrupt that there's no point of return? Like I look at the depth of corruption and the thievery and the treason. I don't think there's no way to legislate yourself out of it. I don't think there's any way of course correcting. I just don't. I think it's gone. That's not blackpilling. That's just an honest assessment. Do you think I'm off?
I'm going to let Mike answer that real quick, and then I'll answer it.
Yeah, I think the same way. I mean, when the government shuts down to break records just because, and it affects a lot of Americans, including the veteran population, obviously we don't have our priorities in order. And this pendulum we know swings. What is it going to look like on the other end of this? Well, here's what I'm not going to tolerate. I'm not going to tolerate that pendulum swinging back and directly impacting this tyrannical behavior against my family from the radical left or radical anybody. And so that might be where the rubber meets the road, because it will swing back in the other direction and it's going to look like communism. And I'm not having that. And I'll get as rural as I can, create as much distance as possible, but eventually my back's going to be against the wall. And we know what happens when men's backs are against the wall and they're fighting for their family and their country. Bad things happen to bad people.
Yes.
Yep.
And the bad thing is, the sad thing is we can't get enough men to stand up when, guys, we still have the ability to do this peaceably, but that is dwindling down to nothing. And I think we're basically almost at the point where there isn't really a peaceable solution. And that's also not blackpilling. That's just kind of looking at the situation right now. Because if at some point it gets to the point where you can no longer sanction the government to do what they need to do, what they're supposed to be doing. And you've got to take matters into your own hands. And that's not me saying that we need to do that now. It's not me calling people to arms or any of that kind of stuff. That is just saying, in reality, we are at that point. And it's a sad day because I've got two boys, 13 and 10. I don't want them to inherit this. I want them to grow up in the America that I grew up in. And the reality is we let them take that away from us. Yeah. Where you could ride your bike down the street and your parents didn't really know where you were at. They knew you were in the town, but you could ride your bike around town all day and never have to worry about, somebody coming and assaulting you or kidnapping you or any of that kind of stuff. So yeah, we're at a dangerous crossroads. And my biggest fear is that a lot of times in these situations, the leaders that arise to fix these problems are just as problematic as what you're coming from. And that's history bears that out. Is you have to be really careful with revolutions, really, really careful, because most of the time they don't turn out very good.
Nope.
No, I don't want a physical revolution, a civil war, but I'm just saying I don't see any off ramps that we're going to take. And then when that civil war, however that looks, it won't look like the old Civil War. It'll look very different.
Yep.
When we come out of that, I don't know what we have. Do we even have a country? Do we have a United States of America that resembles something we don't even know? I think it's maybe a combination of everything. But one thing that we do know, we have no idea what's on the back end of this, and that our leaders are leading us down this road because we are America last. We are self-loathing as a nation. It is unbelievable to watch how we get blamed for everything instead of standing up and saying we're the greatest nation on earth because we have property rights. Well, what are property rights? Means you can't take 50% of my income, but you do. But we sat here and we allow them. What if 50 million Americans just said, no, I'm not filing my taxes, go pound sand? That's power. But will we ever get there? I don't know.
You have to be willing to risk. When you read the Declaration of Independence, just had this conversation with my wife the other night. That wasn't, we say, or I say a lot of times, our rights come from God. But there is a but. You also have to be able to pledge your life, duty, and sacred honor to that idea. That's what the Declaration of Independence was. It was those guys basically saying, this is what we believe, and we're willing to die for it.
Yep.
And a lot did. That it wasn't just a document. It's like, hey, we made this proclamation and now we're free. No, there's something that goes along with that. And it's a pledge that, hey, you can take my life, in the words of William Wallace, but you'll never take my freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the reality. And that's where we got to get to. But the problem is we can't get away from our Netflix and our DoorDash long enough to actually think about this stuff.
It's true.
Not to be a downer, but on this cheery note, I have to go dinner before my wife.
Right. Well,
all right.
Thanks,
Thank
Jeff.
you,
Yeah,
guys.
we're gonna start wrapping up here. We'll wrap up. Jeff, have a good night, and then we'll wrap up with Mike and JJ, and we'll get
Gentlemen,
get off here. So
thank you, Jeff.
Keep fighting
Thanks,
the good
Jeff.
fight.
You too.
Night.
So, as a parting thing, I'm gonna just basically I'll give you guys a chance to ask or to answer a question. So, you guys are basically in control of the decision making. What are three things you would do to turn this thing around tomorrow? And I'll start with you, Mike, and then I'll go to JJ.
The three things I would do, number one, is I would do a major press conference and announce that for the unforeseen future, we are focusing all of our attention, including budgets, resources, on our country and no longer foreign interest until further notice. I would prioritize, obviously, the economy and its protection overseas with economic relationships, but I would also pull out of every foreign conflict that doesn't serve us and our citizens first and foremost. The second thing I would do is prioritize our service members. As a veteran myself, obviously, I prioritize unfucking that system immediately. The problem with our entire government is many of them have never been abused by that system. For example, I saw Black Rifle and Born Primitive are doing this thing to raise $25 million. Amazing that they're doing that because it's a real problem. In fact, it nearly bankrupted me because when I had facial cellulitis from shrapnel working itself out of my face, when I had medical bills stacked up and the VA didn't have a process to fix that problem, it stacked $25,000 of debts I didn't have at the time and literally destroyed my credit. I lived in my own business for 6 months because I couldn't even get an apartment complex or in an apartment complex because I didn't have the credit and I had bad credit because of the VA, which apparently they're fixing now. I would also revamp the way that our governments ran. I work for the CIA. I have a problem as a taxpayer and also a former CIA employee that we have organizations in the government that have unlimited budgets, no constraints, and basically no oversight. The oversight, I think, comes from constituents through the representatives. That's how systems work. On top of that policy change, there's many things you could do. I could talk all night about it, but I would create limitations for members of Congress. The fact that Nancy Pelosi is being celebrated as some kind of Sebastian of change and evolution of this country is ridiculous. The only thing that she grew was her bank account and her stock portfolio. And so 40 plus years of doing that, these career politicians that have made it their job off the back of American taxpayers and their constituents has to stop. Term limits across the board, I would enact as an executive order if I was in that position. And that's obviously, 5 meters of a million meter target.
Yes. Yeah. JJ, I'm going to give you a chance. 3 things you would do.
My first thing, if I had unlimited power and I was the king, the very first thing I would do is I'd pull back all military personnel from across the globe and I would place them in the interior of America, in metropolitan areas to squash crime immediately. I'd do a PSA immediately saying all illegal aliens have 48 hours to remove, or if you don't, then I'm turning it over not only to law enforcement, but bounty hunters. I'm putting a tab, I'm putting a hit on you, meaning everyone that gets arrested is $1,000. Go to work, America, make it happen. Then I would do term limits, and then I would do a moratorium for at least the term that I have, 4 years. Let's say I have a 4-year limited term, that there will not be one red cent leaves the nation of the United States of America. Not one. And I'm not going to talk about another country. We're not going to even mention other nations. I don't care. We may send our Red Cross ship to help someone. That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But no money leaves our nation until we are in the black. All of our systems are righted. All of our infrastructure is completed, and then we don't have our streets paved with gold. Then we'll have a discussion on foreigners. But until we get to the point where it's America only, I don't want to hear a damn thing from these people. Not a damn thing. I don't give a shit about MAGA. I don't care about America first, because when you do America first, you have second, third, and fourth places. I want America only, period. MAGA doesn't mean anything to me. MAGA means as much to me as the term Republican does now.
And unfortunately true. So mine would be, I would first off completely closing the border. We cannot allow anything in. We're pushing everybody out. That's number one. We've got to stop the bleeding, and that's the bleeding of that money and time and our national treasure. That's all going out because of this porous border and these issues that we have. Everybody's getting deported that's not here legally. I'm revoking all of the visas, all of that kind of stuff. You're going back where you came from. And then we'll figure that out. Second, I am decentralizing the government. As I spoke before, I'm decentralizing the government. And a part of that is going to be that you can't serve more than 2 terms, whatever House of Congress that you're in. You can not serve more than 2 terms. There's no more of this voting for your own pay raises, all of that kind of stuff. Third, I'm going to basically say that I would go back to the original state constitutions. This may be actually somewhat of a violation of the First Amendment, as some people interpret it. It's interpreted differently, but I'll just say this. I'm going to have a very hard push to return to the Christian values of the founding of this country. We're going to return the 10 Commandments to school. We're going to return school prayer, Christian prayer, and we're going to turn back to the founding of this country. This is a Christian nation. Everybody that's always talking about it's about freedom of religion. I understand that idea, and I'm not saying that's wrong, but we were founded on Christian principles. Mm-hmm. So if there is something that we are going to push, it's our Christian principles. It's not, and I'm not talking about a theocracy. I'm not talking about what Islam does, but I'm going to say that this is something that's going to be taught, because I don't think that we get anywhere without returning to those principles first. That's the one thing that we cannot forget. We have become too secularized. Mm-hmm. In the words of John Adams, this Constitution was made for a moral and religious people. Mm-hmm. And specifically, if you look at his other writings, he is talking about Christianity. And because we have become so secularized in this country, that's why you're seeing this tearing away from the Constitution, how it's not working, seemingly for a lot of people, is because we've become so secularized. We no longer look at things through the lens of Christian values or principles. We look at it through a secular lens, and that is why we're seeing the tearing away. And so those would be my three things.
We got a lot of work to do.
Amen. 100%. Well, before we let you guys go, thank you guys. We had actually a really good crowd tonight. I want to remind all of you guys, if you like this content, if you want more of it, go over to our Substack, join the Guardians. You get access to the 5 private intel channels on Signal, and there's a ton of people that are over there sharing things with each other. It's a great community. You also get the SHTF alerts and the survival emags that are really, really well done. Direct access to everybody from the Survival Dispatch Network. And that's only $7.99 a month. I mean, you pay more for Netflix and everything else. And it really helps us know that you guys support us. If you pay for a year, you get it for $74.99, which is gets you about 2.5 months worth for free. And it is a great thing. The new ThreatWire chat is great. We're starting up some stuff in the regional areas to kind of help each other know what's going on regionally, because it's such a big country. It's hard to keep track of everything. So it's just a lot of really good info, and it's a really good value. And we've got a lot of other things coming your way very soon. Really appreciate everybody on the chat tonight. It was very, very active, and I'm sorry I didn't get to everybody throwing those up there, but really, really appreciate it. And thanks to Mike and JJ for joining us tonight and giving us some really awesome insight. So we'll be back tomorrow. I think Chris is going to be back because I think he landed back in Florida today from his business trip. So he'll be back again tomorrow with another episode. And until then, you guys stay safe. Christ is King. God bless America.
Thank you.
I don't know what to say, Lord, but I know that I can stay silent. And I don't know what to pray, Lord, so I pray that I don't turn violent. I try to turn the other cheek, but evil's everywhere I turn. I feel it turning me into someone I don't want to be, someone that don't forgive. But if we let evil go, we just punish the innocent. Two children woke up without daddy and a wife without a husband, and you celebrate in public like you love it. So disgusted, God, I'm trying not to cuss, but what the do that around me, and I'm swinging, that's on everything I love. And if they lock me up, then lock me up and throw away the key. Rather be a man behind bars than a coward living free. You probably got no principles if you ain't got no enemies. This the point of no return, the turning point where you need me. Cause laughing at a man's death, same as pissing on his grave. But I bet you cowards thinking that you brave. I said, laughing at a man's death, same as pissing on his grave. But I bet you won't do that in my face. Cause this coward shot a stand up man while he was sitting down. I don't recognize the world that we live in now. The Bible said that this would happen, it's all written down. The final minutes of the final time is picking Jesus coming any minute now. They shame was sacred while they celebrating sinning now. I say it loud enough that you can hear it in the clouds. I'd rather die than live life like a coward. Cold blood and they celebrate like the letters from heaven say. Hearts of many will grow cold in the end of days. Father, forgive me for not forgiving, teach me how to love. Cause love's the last thing on my mind right now after seeing that blood. But then I look up and I shake my head, thinking about the blood you shed and words you said. They know not what they do, think it was something like that. I don't got your book memorized, so I know that my pen at times can stray off the pages. So I just pray that I remember that. A coward dies 1,000 deaths, a martyr dies just once. When a coward kills a soldier, the whole army rises up. I said a coward dies 1,000 deaths, a martyr dies just once. And when a coward kills a soldier, the whole army rises up. Cause this coward shot a stand up man while he was sitting down. I don't recognize the world that we live in now. The Bible said that this would happen, it's all written down. The final minutes of the final time is picking Jesus coming any minute now. They shame was sacred while they celebrating sinning now. I say it loud enough that you can hear it in the clouds. I'd rather die, then live life like a coward.
How do you want to be remembered? If I die, everything just goes away. How would you, if you could be associated with one thing, how would you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered for courage for my faith. That would be the most important. Most important thing is my faith.